After completing this lesson, you will be able to understand structural walls, edit a wall profile, create a stacked wall, and create a compound wall. The objective domains covered are 1.1c, work with structural walls. Structural walls are load-bearing elements that can resist compressive forces from elements above. Structural walls can also resist shear loads. Architectural walls have many of the structural wall properties and can be converted to a structural wall if required. They are typically used for non-load-bearing functions such as internal partitions. Structural walls are load-bearing and can have an analytical model for transfer to structural analysis software. A stacked wall is two or more subwalls that can be stacked together. In the example below, you can see two reinforced concrete walls are stacked with different thicknesses. Stacked walls are very convenient as you can place the walls in one simple command. A compound wall is a wall structure that can contain multiple vertical layers, such as masonry, concrete, and cavities, etc. In the example below, you can see that brick and blockwork are combined with a cavity wall. Go ahead and open up the file 006, Work with Structural Walls. Note that the file opens up in the ground floor plan. We begin by creating two shear walls. On the structure ribbon, click Wall. On the context ribbon, you'll note that we have Draw Tools, and on the options bar, you'll notice that we can determine whether the wall is drawn up to a height or down to a depth. In this example, we'd like to draw to a height of 04 full floor. We can then define the location line for our wall. Are we defining the wall center line, the finish face exterior, or the finish face interior? We can then use the chain option to control whether we draw a single wall or a chain of walls. And finally, we have the ability to add an offset in. In my case, I'm going to uncheck chain. In the Properties palette, you'll note that we can select the type of wall that we want to work with. In our example, we're going to use RC wall 12 inch. Let's go ahead and zoom up on grid 8. So we require a wall 4 feet long. And you can see, just using the temporary dimensions here, we can begin 2 feet away to the left of grid 8. And I can then define a wall 4 foot long. I can then repeat that on the other side. Our two shear walls are now complete. Next, we create a stacked wall for a basement construction. In the project browser, let's switch to -01 top of foundation. On the structure ribbon, select wall. And in the properties palette, go ahead and select stacked wall, exterior 8 inch over 10 inch concrete wall. We are required to modify this type. Select the Edit Type button. And first, we're going to rename this wall type. We'll call this one RC Wall 10 inch over 12 inch. We'll then select the Edit button. And here we are in the Edit Assembly dialog box. To help us understand this better, you'll note that we have a preview window that we can enable on the left-hand side. Currently, we're looking in section on this wall. So the first thing I'd like to do is change the type of wall used on the top. So you'll note here that we can see all of our basic wall styles from this pull-down list. Let's choose RC Wall 10 inches. For the base of the wall, we'll choose RC Wall 12 inches. I'd like to have a height of 2 foot and 6 inches. for the base wall, and the remaining wall will go to the top of the wall constraint. Go ahead and click OK, and OK again, and you can see our new stacked wall is created. We can now model our stacked wall. On the context ribbon, you'll note that we have our draw panel. On the options bar, we can determine if our wall goes up to a height or down to a depth. In this case, we're modelling to a depth of our lift pit. Now here, I would like to define the exterior face of the wall. So we'll say Finish Face Exterior, and I want to enable Chain. So I can now model my wall. So I'm going to begin on the edge of the floor and grid 7. Note that I'm drawing in a clockwise fashion. This will ensure that the wall comes out the right way, and also our location line is correct. So here, I'm now going to trace around the edge of the slab and construct my wall. If we switch now to the 3D view, we can now see our basement wall. Yeah, we can clearly see the transition between the 12-inch wall and the 10-inch wall. Next, we create a compound wall for our lift core. Switch back to the 00 ground floor plan and zoom up on the lift core. So this is the wall we're going to go ahead and edit. In the Properties palette, select the Type selector, and to begin, we're going to choose a generic 6-inch wall. Click Edit Type, and then duplicate this style. So we'll name this wall 6-inch blockwork with render. We'll then click OK and select the Edit button. Revit has retained the fact that we have a sectional view shown over here in our preview. And here we can simply now change the material to blockwork. We can do a simple search for blockwork in the materials browser and select concrete masonry units. You'll note that the thickness is already set to 6 inches, so we can leave that as is. We now want to create 2 new layers. We want to create a finish for our render, and this finish is going to go on both sides of the wall. The finishes normally need to go outside of the core boundary, so I'm going to select the Insert button. Here, I'm going to go ahead and select Finish 1, and I'll select my suitable material. So here we can do a simple search for render, and go ahead and select Wall Render. The render thickness is 1 inch, and you notice here that it has a wraps function. That means the render can wrap around the wall. We'll now insert a 3rd layer. If the layer doesn't come in the right position, we can use the up and down button here to position the layer correctly within the wall. So this again will be Finish 1. Here I can simply copy and paste the material name, and again I will copy and paste the wall thickness. So we can now review our wall build-up over here, and you can now see we have a suitable compound wall. I can click OK to my Edit Assembly dialog box, OK again to my Type Properties, and you'll now note that we have our new wall shown. In this example, we're going to change the constraints of our wall. In the Properties palette, you'll note that the base constraint of the wall starts at ground floor. The top constraint goes all the way up to the 5th floor. Let's edit this and have the wall terminating on the 1st floor.